Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today we're going to be getting as high of a possible score against this week's Island 1 Dread Balloon. This is different from regular. Okay, usually I try to make you guys guides, I try to really help out the community with that. Today I'm just going for the best possible score. You can see some background footage of me boat farming here in the middle of one of my runs. Today I'm going to be showing you guys 3 quick little runs, and before we get into them I want to tell you that for the rest of May and all of June, to honor Technoblade's death, he died June 30th, all of the money from Cody Yoboy and from my YouTube channel is going to be going straight to the Sarcoma Foundation. You can find a link in the description of this video if you wish to donate yourself, however that is not at all necessary. I just want to thank you guys so much for supporting me, alright, for this little source of income that I can give pretty much anywhere I want, and just thank you so much for being here, for liking, subscribing, using Cody Yoboy, that is YOBOI in the BTD6 store. And yeah, let's get into this. So, for this video, alright, I got 3 full games, which were each over 20 minutes. Obviously, I cut them down into about 10 minutes because half of the time was paused. But the plan is, I'm going to show you my full setup, which obviously I've planned for, considering the fact that I'm placing down 5 boats to completely start, or not 5 boats, 5 pawns. This was very expensive, monkey money wise. But yeah, the best start against Dread Balloon is getting down some 1-3-0 boats. And we're going to be using Ben as our hero for some farming. These guys on last attack faster and will get some double shots in, which is pretty much they attack the entrance and the boss, which allows the explosion to hit both. We skip getting the top cross path on the last boat so that we can afford Ben faster, and also this merchantman faster, which will allow us to have just enough more money in order to afford getting everything up right. We get and target a spike factory, as well as getting up an ice monkey in order to upgrade it to a 410 and then target. Now we can finally deal some good damage to the boss. You're going to see some jump cuts here and here because, just 1 second, and that is because pausing is something that I just will constantly be doing, and I want to cut all of the pausing out that I can in order to make the video quality a little bit better. However, it still doesn't fully fix it because you miss out on a couple of milliseconds. But yeah, pretty much here we're going to be outbuffing the spike factory and retargeting it, which is all done while we're placing down rubber to gold and while we're getting up these boat farms. We get up another boat farm here who is going to increase our sell value, and eventually we upgrade it to the tier 5. And now we're preparing our second phase of defense, because once the immune to support phase comes in, we need to be doing something else. That'll happen at the 30th pop, and this little embezzlement is going to be dealing enough balloon damage for us to be okay, and we'll sell our defense in exchange for a 104 sticky bomb, and now we're going to work on boat farming. A sticky bomb is obviously not even close to the fastest solution we could be doing right now. However, what I found is that it is not only extremely cheap, but also it is slow enough for us to be boat farming, alright? Because I want to be boat farming as efficiently as possible to have as much money as possible for paragons in the late game. Now, what I will tell you is that the faster ways of doing the early game are definitely a viable option. Alright, here we're getting up 2 more tier 4 boats in order to increase the sellback on our ninja, so that when we are going for this Mulm Shredder, Spike Storm, and eventually Carpet Spikes, it'll have an increased amount of sellback for the stuff that we're selling. We then get up an Abysmal Dweller on last, who's pretty much going to be replacing our Brittlement during this immune to primary phase, and once we sell it of course as well, but it also increases the Spike's Pierce, so it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. We get up $41,000 and we can upgrade it to the Carpet Spikes, which is both very fast but also slow enough to allow us to be upgrading our flavor trades as fast as possible. This video took me probably about 10 hours total if you count editing, you count my first runs, you count all the runs before these and all the failed runs. I'd say 10 hours is actually a pretty reasonable estimate, maybe closer to 6 or 7, 6, 7, but this took me a long time, and it would mean a lot to me if you leave a comment. Let me know if you like this type of content, or if you think I should, avoid personality stuff and just stick with the guide boy. But yeah, I'm just hoping that, maybe people will like this, and I can do it more often, because I really enjoyed it. At times, 10 hours is a whole lot of time to spend, but if you guys enjoy it, it was completely worth it. Now we're going to be going up for a Sun Avatar. This guy's going to help us with our immune to military phase just a little bit. It doesn't really deal that much damage, but we need to get it up for a temple later, so, why not? We actually, in later runs, are going to be getting this guy in a slightly different location, but I'm not really going to be showing the later runs that much. I just want to say it now, but a better location for this would be much higher into the left, in which case it would allow us to be getting the money boost that it gives. So the temple, it gives 50% more cash to balloons popped in range, but it also gives the $1,250 per round. And 50% more cash is obviously a lot more significant, so we actually end up in future runs out-ecoing this by like 100 or 200k by the end just because of temple location. So that's kind of my bad, but you know, it isn't like that easy to just remember everything. Yeah, here we sold the Carpet of Spikes, rebought it so that we could sacrifice it to the temple, and now we're going to be getting the range up on it. It's kind of funny how like I still see pauses in here, even though I specifically remember cutting the pause after the temple was bought, which is kind of insane because it means that I must have paused just way more than I remember. But yeah, once we get the temple up, we get a Flying Fortress, we get an Alchemist. The Super Brittle's obviously helping things out. And I mean, these are just all of the biggest damage towers, and I love watching them come together in this manner. Now we're going to get an even bigger damage tower, the Super Mines. This temple discount is of course going absolutely ham. I believe it saves 20%, which is on the Super Mines like $25,000. Flying Fortress another 20 grand, Perma Brew 15, you know, it goes pretty crazy. And we are going to be getting up a tier 5 Druid here just to farm some Druid pops. And now our first Paragon is going to be the boat, believe it or not. It's not even close to the cheapest Paragon, but we just have so much pops on it already that once we get past the military phase, which is going to be pretty much as soon as, you know, you see that massive pile of super mines coming in, yeah, we're going to hit that and pretty much immediately get past most of the 90s, right? We go straight to 96 from around 90, which is insane. And we get up these tier 5s, they're going to be pop farming, and the super mines is going to be completely demolishing the boss. You can see we sold the Flying Fortress because it's immune to military right now, so Flying Fortress is obviously not dealing damage. But yeah, we're at 99 here, and just getting ready to sell super mines as fast as possible and buy ourselves the boat Paragon. So yep, here, oh wait, actually we have to buy cross paths. I completely forgot here in my actual more optimized runs, I will be cross pathing before I actually do all this stuff, but yeah, we get up all the cross paths that we need for extra tiers, which will give us, of course, extra Paragon degrees. Very, very powerful. And then, you know, we're kind of just wanting to force a degree 40. I believe without any tiers, and assuming a very similar amount of pops as we have now, we only get to about degree 39, so we needed the tiers. So here you can see we're boat farming again. This is actually what my intro was. It was this exact thing at this exact speed. So speaking of the intro, I'm going to talk more about Technoblade. That guy, he was a big mentor to me, pretty much. Not literally, because he didn't know who I was. I was, God, I don't know how much younger I am than him. Probably, I think, 7 years. But I was watching him for a long, long time. I think my friend introduced me to him when he was at about 200,000 subscribers. And he was still uploading his Skywars videos. And I was like, I actually didn't really understand why he liked him so much. But I did keep on watching, right? I just had... It was interesting to me, you know, all those stories, they were fun, just talking about his life, and it was always interesting. One I remember is him talking about, you know, when he was a little toddler and he was fighting another toddler, and I'm like, that's hilarious, you know, how could anyone not like this? Yeah, pretty much in this, we were going for a bunch of boomerangs. We sold boats in order to get some boomerang tiers, and then we're going to buy the boats back. But here, of course, at 130, it's immune to military, and we're going to want to get down a Boomerang Paragon, degree 20 or higher, in order to get rid of that immunity. Yeah, this Technoblade guy, he was really amazing and just funny and interesting, and he was impressive as well. You know, everyone thinks of themselves like they're heroes, and that is the case for me as well. I don't think I'm as funny or as impressive, but you know, I always think I'm great at video games, that I want to push myself and I want to make a difference, alright? You know, when he died, he raised, I think it was $250,000 or $300,000 in one live stream for the Sarcoma Foundation, because he looked at what happened to himself and he said, I don't want other kids to die. I don't want this to happen. And so the money that, if you donate money or if you use code YOBOY, that money is going to be going to research. And what research is pretty much, and here we're getting up a super mines just to get some more pops for getting rid of this immunomilitary phase as fast as possible. But pretty much the research, what it's actually doing, is going to be paying scientists to try to find the cure to cancer. It's something that we've been doing for a long time, and we've made so much progression. Even in the last 4 years, he would have had a better chance if he got it now compared to 4 years ago. And it's important that we give everyone the best chance possible. I do recommend, if you want to donate your own money, not to necessarily blindly donate it to the Sarcoma Foundation, link in description, because it depends on what you care about. If you want to make a difference now and directly your money goes to paying for someone's current treatment because they can't afford it, and maybe they're from a different country where healthcare is not, in America, we have the jokes, alright? We have healthcare is just so damn expensive, and it's completely true. However, you get the healthcare first, and then you wreck the rest of your life by not being able to pay for it. But in many other places, you can't afford it, you're not going to get it. Yeah, here we're selling all of our boats so that we can go for a Druid gun. Alright, get up a pop list army, you know the drill. We're getting as many pops as possible so that we can get as high of a degree as possible. But yeah, if you want to, you can donate money to a different web organization. If you leave a comment, I can suggest you some where your money goes to funding treatments to save a life now. But what I personally support, and what Technoblade supported, right, which is why I support it, is the research, because then we can get cheaper, better treatments. We can save lives now, or no, not save lives now. We can save lives in the future. But hopefully it's more lives, you know what I mean? Hopefully the money's doing more, but it's really a matter of opinion, not some scientific fact that one is better than the other. So, with that being said, here we are finally getting up the Druid Paragon, and, this guy, he's going to deal some serious damage. Many Dread Balloons, you stop at 160 pops, I think, because you can't have the Dark Gond carry anymore, you can't have Boomer Gond carry anymore, right? So a lot of people, they get to 160 and they're done. Here, we actually get up a Druid Paragon with $1.2 million in the cash slider, which is insane. And it's degree 6-7, real funny. And then we can sell the Straight Empire so that we can afford enough cash in order to activate the ability. You need about $1,000 too, because it drains 1,000 a second, but if you have more money, then it'll be able to drain it for longer. This Druid Paragon goes absolutely crazy. I mean, before it was in the game, a lot of the time you were not going to be able to get this high of a pop count. But here, there is another option, which you're going to see last, right? These are 3 endgames, 3 different endgames, alright? I'm showing you 3 different strategies pretty much that all get similar scores, but, well, the last one's the best, so you got to stick around for that. Yeah, this Druid Gun, degree 6-7, I'm adding some support, but it's not going to do anything actually, so, whatever. This Druid Gun goes crazy. Boss Rush is pretty much the only game mode where Druid Gun is actually decent. Everywhere else, in ranked bossing, you just don't want something that's wasting so much money, right? You would never use it in tier 3, tier 4 defense because it's draining your money, and you need the money, and you need to be farming during those. But tier 5, it definitely has its uses, and its biggest use case is the end game of Boss Rush, because, I'm sorry, look at this HP. This is 1.4 million health. Gone in a snap, in near 2 or 3 seconds. But here we get 174 score, which I'm pretty happy with, but my goal was 180 or higher, and that is the goal I'm sticking with. So we're going to see how we do. Alright, here we are in run 2. Obviously the same first 120 rounds, but this time we're trying to go a little bit faster for the 130s, right, to get rid of this immunity phase, which is why we already had the Spike Factory down. And we got a slightly higher boomerang degree, but I think we mostly just got it earlier. And this guy's going to be hopefully demolishing the boss even faster. The goal here, alright, the first one, we got up to the degree 67 Druid Gun, who is of course extremely powerful. Here, we're not trying to get levels, we're trying to do quantity over quality, alright, which is not quantity in terms of paragons, but quantity in terms of time we are going to be hitting the boss, alright. Last time we got a degree 67, This time we're going to hopefully get a degree 60. You're going to see how that turned out. But we want to be hitting the boss for just way longer. Now, you can't move paragons, right? And if we sold and rebought the paragon, it would be maybe degree 40 to 60 the first time, and then maybe degree 0. It would be degree 1 the next time, which is obviously not going to be beneficial. So what we're going to do here is a little trick. So, of course, we got to sell the boats, we got to replace the druids. I do it in the wrong order because ideally you would have the temple up while we are rebuying all the druids to make them cheaper. But here we go, we're placing them all down, and we are going to be placing the paragon on top of the tier 5 top path boat so that, we can see where the Avatar of Wrath is. And we could have gotten it up faster. That was the improvement I could have made, is get it up faster, because all this time that the Avatar of Wrath is attacking, the paragon could have been attacking. So I was kind of throwing here, but you live and you learn. Next time we're going to do even better, even more optimized. I promise y'all that. Alright, this one I was honestly kind of slacking, but next time we are going to be doing it. So yeah, here I get up the Dark Champion because I want to have some money left over in order to buy the paragon a second time. You can see here we're actually keeping the bow paragon for now because it's easier. If you just leave all the money in your account, obviously the Druid Paragon will steal every single bit of it. This guy drains $1,000 per second, and it is absolutely atrocious. But yeah, we need to occasionally click the ability back on because we're kind of spending money. I forgot to get up a Pirate Lord. I should have sacrificed less money to the Paragon and gotten up this Pirate Lord first. My bad. But yeah, pretty much here we are just going to be trying to move the Paragon once it is out of range of the boss, which is a pretty smart strategy. I mean, it's not completely original. It's not like no one's thought of it before. But it is a good strategy that people forget about a ton, so that's why I'm kind of bringing it up now. This is totally an option, and I didn't think of it for a while. Yeah, now we are slowly falling out of range, and once we are just about to be out of range, I'm going to turn the Paragon into the light mode, which I was ideally doing in order to actually make money for a little bit, but I kind of mistimed it. Whatever, it's fine. But yeah, pretty much we transform the Paragon. Then we're going to be selling the boats, right, the Paragon and the extra boats, and the Dark Champion, who was kind of acting as like a little money holder, right? It did some boss damage, but it was mostly a money holder, so that the Druid Paragon couldn't steal it. And then we have just enough money to buy Boat Paragon, and I do a little bit of a silly here. I sacrifice my cash to it, which means I can't turn back the Paragon, which is really stupid, right? I could have gotten an extra pop or two just by having the Paragon in the Wrathful state for a couple of extra seconds, right? It would have been genuinely 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds would have snowballed and gotten us probably another pop, which is alright, whatever. But you can see here Druid super, super powerful, and we are going to once again get 174 pops. I know that's kind of underwhelming, right? That's the same score we got last time, but that's just how these things go sometimes. It was pretty demotivating, but I said, look, I got one more strategy in mind, one more attempt, which took many attempts. It took another hour of attempts to get another good run. But I want to get a better strategy. I want to do the best I possibly can. And let's just say, I did it. Let's hop right in there. So alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the final run. Here we're starting again, round 130, we're getting up the Boomerang Paragon, and this time I think we get it up maybe a little bit earlier, but that is not what makes the big difference. What's really going to matter is the change in strategy, alright? You can see here that we have the spike, the tier 5 top path spike, right, the most powerful one. It's not actually supporting against boss damage. You might be wondering, yo boy, why would you do this? You're making the boss go much slower, right? Because this guy was dealing probably not the same amount, but similar amounts, and the reason is because I wanted to buy it earlier and get these 3 million pops on the Spike Factory. Hey yo boy, why do you need 3 million pops on a Spike Factory? Why are you buffing it with Lord of the Abyss and placing down all the tier 5s? If you're asking that question, you've never played BT6 before? I don't know, like, what? It's obvious, I want the Paragon. Alright, that's what we're going for. Spike Factory Paragon is known as the most powerful Paragon in the game, and kind of like the Druid Paragon, it works really well in Boss Rush. But the Druid Paragon sucks, and Spike Factory Paragon works really well in Boss Rush, just like the Druid Paragon, who already went from, like, sucking to being very powerful. And this guy's going from being number 1 to being even more powerful. So obviously something very strong is going to happen here. Alright, pretty much what the Spike Factory Paragon gets, the advantage that it gets inside a boss rush, not anywhere else, is that start of round attack speed boost, it's going to always have, alright? Because it's always the start of a round, you know what I mean? So here, what we're going to be doing here is going for, as quick as possible, just one quick Ascended Shadow, right? Because previously, for the Druid Paragon, we'd get it up around 151 to around 154. With the Spike Factory Paragon, we can't even start to get it up until around 161 or 162, you know, because we got to deal with this immune to support phase, and then we also have to kill all the rocks that come from it, which takes a while, but it gives us enough time to place down a Ninja Paragon to speed things up, and then also it'll boost our money, of course, because these rounds each, if we look, looks like we go from 270, you know, these things give another $10,000 or more each round, which is pretty insane, because we went from 270 to upper 280. Yeah, we get down all of these, you know, tier 3 with cross paths so that we can get all the tiers that we need, and I guess they're buffing our damage slightly, but, you know, they're away from the track, so not really. We're in the immune primary phase, so I'm going to be getting down my final tier 5, the Perma Spike, because it's not really going to deal damage, and now we are just waiting a little bit. Right now that we're at 161 pops, I feel kind of confident. I don't really want to do another run, so that's why I was leaving things up for so long, but I max out my slider, and we get degree, drumroll please, 68, alright, in between two funny numbers, so, I mean, that kind of sucks, but what we needed was degree 60, because that gives a 20% damage boost over just getting a simple degree 59, and then 61 also gives a pretty good amount of pierce. I'm not exactly sure, but from what I know, Spike Factory Paragon, you always want to be a multiple of 20 plus 1. Now we're going to be getting up just some basic supporting towers, right? The Super Brittle and the Cripple Moab, to try to boost its damage very, very slightly. The Spike Factory Paragon does release a good number of spikes, right? And each of the spikes have a lot of pierce, which means that it does get some benefit from this, but, you know, it's dealing 5,000 damage per tick, so adding an extra 10 is, what, like a 0.2% increase, I think, if my math's right. I didn't actually check with the calculator. It could be 2%, but that sounds way too high. I'm going to assume it's lower. But whatever, it's better to try to help than it is to do absolutely nothing, and so that's what we're doing. Now, what I'm going to tell you now, in hindsight, right, this was my last run, and I was pretty happy with it. I knew I could go further, and what I could have done is, with the $686,000 that I spent on the cash slider, that does pretty much nothing for a Paragon, which cost $800,000, because the cash slider, the price to benefit ratio, is determined by how much the original cost, and because this thing costs over $800,000, obviously all the money that you put in the slider could be better spent elsewhere once you're at degree 61 or higher. And if I put in no cash slider, I would have been at degree 62. Yeah, the cash slider gave me 6 levels, which is pretty much nothing, right? It's not going to be that big of an effect, and what I could have done instead is gotten up Ninja Paragon. I could have kept the boat up, I could have done many things, and that is what I'll keep in mind for the future. But I mean, let's just look at this pop count. 85.8 million damage, mostly against the boss, right? You can see here every single skull you pop, there's 2 million HP for the main layer. That's not including the rock blooms, that's not including the rock layer. This is pretty insane. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want more of this type of footage, if you want more of this type of video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, alright? If you comment, if I get like 2 or 3 people who say, I loved this, right? I enjoyed it at least, I watched till the end, then I'm going to know that people do care about this content, even if the views don't show it, right? I just want to know that some people like it, and that way I will make more of these, right? And I plan to do at least 3 of them, right? Once a week for all of this, while I'm supporting Technoblade. But once I'm no longer doing it for charity, right, I'm going to be doing it for myself, and we'll see how much longer I want to do this. Once again, if you've watched it to the end, you're absolutely insane. This is my longest video yet, and it's not a guide, right? You're here for me, so that's crazy with my ego. So yeah, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. You clearly enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye.